So welcome everyone, those who are here live, and then those who will be listening at a later time. And it's October, and so at the start of October, sorry, I'm just actually checking what it was. We have for doTERRA in this month in 2023, we have free citrus bloom touch roller, which is with the LRP if you've over 125 PV. It's one of my favorite smells. It's just divine. You can wear it as a beautiful perfume. It's so lovely. It's one that you can take around and keep in a little bag, so it is really lovely. And then there's 10% off Adaptiv, and there's the lovely baby collection that's just launched. And then until the 15th, if you do a 200 PV order, you get the deep blue rub, the deep blue touch, and the deep blue oil. So I just thought I'd share with you also a bit more about Adaptiv, and then about Helichrysum, because it's one of my favorite and more expensive oils. So if one is looking for things to get, it's a lovely month to get it, because it will help contribute to that 200 PV. So yeah, welcome again, those who are here live and who just joined. So we'll start with Adaptiv. It's 10% off. It's our, I wanted to actually start with such a beautiful post that someone posted on my friend Natasha, who is the most incredible beekeeper. She did my feminine wisdom course. She already loved bees then, but she decided after that this was her passion. And I just thought I'd share her post. I'm going to post it on the other groups. And it's #NatureHeals. I love that doTERRA is 100% authentic and fully traceable. I must be the biggest and least educated fan of doTERRA oils. Nikki can confirm this. When I shared with her which oils I packed as my first aid kit on a trip abroad, she was sick, and she said, I said, well, what oils have you got with you? And she took a photo. I was like, oh my gosh, why did you take those ones of all the ones? But anyway, we use them to help her. I witness on a weekly basis how pure, authentic products from nature with minimal human interference heals and nurtures. Earlier this year, I had the incredible opportunity to attend the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society Chelsea Flower Show, for the entire week under the banner of Bee and Honey Specialist with Paula Carnell's team from the Newt. Two golden threads or themes underpinned the 2023 show. The first was the importance of rewilding and planting for pollinators, as they form the very fabric which sustains life on Earth. #say no to pesticides. The second was the healing power of gardens, with the emphasis on mental health. Healing takes place, often without our knowledge, when we immerse ourselves in nature. And certainly, being healthy starts with healthy soil, which in turn forms the very foundation for healthy plants and biomes. This is why the sourcing and origin of the botanical footprint for doTERRA oils is so important. The same applies to our food sources. My journey with bees and honey continues to highlight these principles and how important it is to know where our food sources come from, and even more important, to be aware of the process they undergo before we feed ourselves and our families. I don't sell doTERRA oils, but I support zero BS, presume that's bullshit, initiatives, where companies, small businesses, and individuals are committed to provide the consumer premium quality products, honestly, with full transparency. Because the honey industry is much like the essential oil industry. Anyone can put 100% pure, 100% natural, 100% organic, and there's no one checking what's on the bottles, in the bottle, if that's true. So there can be a lot of BS. Susie Aguirre and others. So Susie had posted her experience post her knee op and just using oils, and she didn't use a single painkiller, and her surgeon couldn't believe her healing. Susie Aguirre and others sharing their testimonies. It makes me feel truly hopeful that we can change the tide on how we think about healing and how our food is sourced. It is my hope that our children will seek out the healing power of nature, whether it involves using oils, hiking, reading in the garden, hugging trees, inhaling scents from flowers and trees, practice mindfulness, breathwork, play, dance, add honey, the list goes on. Here's the healing and treasuring the source, Mother Nature. Her wisdom is all around us. Toodles. So I just thought that was so beautiful, and I will share it on my groups. So this is ways we can help to support ourselves with using Mother Nature and bringing nature into our homes, and nature in its most potent, most pure, most accessible way into our homes and lives, and teaching our children how to empower themselves and what they can turn to. And Adaptiv and Helichrysum are two oils very much like that. So Adaptiv is our calming blend. It's relieving, centering, and enlivening. So according to this essential life book. I mean, it is vast, the things that Adaptiv offers. So I'm just going to go through it very briefly. I'm not going to dive into that because it's kind of too much. But I'll just read it out and then we'll go into it a little bit more. So top uses: chaotic environments and situations, lack of tranquility, loss of composure, poor coping capacity and anxiety, menstruation and menopause-related moodiness and depression, addictive and compulsive or obsessive behaviours, overthinking, so getting out of our minds, lack of motivation and mental fatigue, lack of focus and concentration, inability to stay on task, restlessness, upset baby and colic. So it's actually a fantastic one for colic. Tired, achy or weakened muscles and growing pains. Also amazingly for growing pains. Loss of sense of smell, wrinkles, skin breakouts and irritations, brain, Alzheimer's disease, elevated cortisol levels, and as a perfume. So it's really powerful. It's safe for neat application. Mandy, who's on this, has just done a wonderful workshop with Nikki Hutton, and they went to teachers. We donated some Adaptiv and they made rollers and they gifted them to teachers who really are under-resourced, under-supported, for them to use for this. And maybe, Mandy, I should take a photo of this and you can send it on to them so they can know what else their Adaptiv can be used for. So the advanced oil magic, it's called the calming blend when it doesn't have the actual name. And the top uses are anxiety: apply 2 drops to the webs of the hands and the base of the skull and diffuse throughout the day. So it's interesting, it's the webs of the hand that they talk about here. I hadn't read that before, but these are very powerful acupuncture points and acupressure points, particularly for headaches, for calming and things. So it's interesting. So using our Adaptiv here. For depression, massage 1 to 3 drops on the base of the skull and over the solar plexus. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, rub 1 to 2 drops on the inside of the arms and onto the base of the skull. Hyperactivity, diffusing several drops. Also rub 2 drops onto the bottom of the feet. So maybe these teachers can also get all the kids, they can just put a little thing on it at the beginning of the lesson, and they can maybe help them. Bipolar, applying 2 to 4 drops to temples and inner thighs twice daily. Adjustment neuropathy. So this is apply 1 to 2 drops to child's stuffed toy or take along comfort item. So that's the adjustment neuropathy, must be that attachment to a toy. So the gentle floral and fruity tones of this blend create a sense of safety in the present moment. Take in the feeling and awareness of everything being all right as it is right now. So it says, did you know the calming blend oil blend is made to work synergistically with the calming blend complex? Together they work systematically to improve neurotransmitter activity. So I went to the convention, doTERRA convention in 2019 when they actually launched Adaptiv. And it was fascinating because they talked about some of the research that they had done already, which was just their own research in classroom situations. They, in one classroom, they had a placebo diffuser, or they diffused a placebo, and in the other, they diffused Adaptiv. And they got students to do these maths, almost like a maths Olympiad kind of maths questions, and with a big ticking clock, so under big time pressure doing this. And the ones who they had the Adaptiv in, their test results were better and they reported more of a feeling of calm while doing it, as opposed to having it with the placebo. And we haven't had the capsules here in South Africa, and doTERRA is working really hard on bringing them here. Our problem is SAHPRA, our South African Pharmaceutical, I don't know what it stands for, SAHPRA, Regulatory Association, has become so medicalized and there's a lot going on. Someone was telling me the other day that you can't even get green vibrance anymore. So many of our wonderful healing products are being shut down, and obviously SAHPRA is very influenced by pharmaceutical companies. So doTERRA haven't had their license. That's why we took so long to get LLV to try and get this passed, to get the approval for supplements, because this comes under the supplement rather than an oil, which can come under beauty. So So they allowed to launch something as a trial, and they did this last month when they did the wellness week, and they were the Adaptiv capsules. We have subsequently heard that they have got some left over. It wasn't fully sold out. It's not available online, but you can phone them for an exception. So if you're on LRP and you want to phone them, or even if you just want to do a standard order, phone them and you ask for an exception for the Adaptiv capsules, and you can get those. I bought quite a stack. Some people have already bought off me, and our kids are using them for their exams, and I use them if I'm feeling a particularly pressured and stressed time. So, but one can use the oil. The oil one can't use internally. I forget why. The reason is that we don't use it internally, but we can use it topically and we can diffuse it. And it's very good, obviously, this time of year with exams and things like that. So that is Adaptiv. Please shout if there are any questions. It's not my favorite smell. It's quite a florally, citrusy smell. Not like I love citrus bloom and those sort of floral smells. But it is, yeah, a lot of people swear by it and live by it, and it's lovely for times of transition and change and adapting to different environments. And then Helichrysum. Now, this was, when I first smelt it, I really disliked it. It's got a very strong smell. I should have bought mine here. In fact, I do have it in my little, so this is my physio toolbox that I take to, it's got all my taping and stuff for all the sports matches that I now sit on the side of the field for. And there's Helichrysum, actually. So I've got deep blue and Helichrysum. I take a few little things that I can make bottles for all the sportsmen and women. And I've got my deep blue roller and deep blue oil and breathe, and then all the tape and stuff. So it's a very strong smell, and I was so excited to get it because I've always struggled with eczema and skin issues. It's much, much better now than it's been, but one of the things that comes up time and again for eczema is Helichrysum. So I bought it for that, and then I got it in the December when we were in the UK, just before we actually went skiing in January 2020. And when I opened it, I was like, oh, jeepers, I really dislike the smell. Now I love the smell because I think all it symbolizes and how much I've used it and loved it and things. It comes from a very yellow plant, which you'll actually recognize. We do have our own Helichrysum. I hope that they'll start to source it here in South Africa, which might make it more affordable. But it's bright yellow, and this is from Italy. Helichrysum italicum is what is used in ours. And there is a question whether this was the third thing that they gave to baby Jesus, the frankincense, myrrh, and Helichrysum, perhaps, because its sort of properties are healing, fusing, and regenerating. So, and you can use it neat. I use it mostly neat. I hardly ever dilute it. So that's the Helichrysum roller. I don't use that much because it's diluted, and I prefer the neat one. And you can find it in Deep Blue and in Immortelle, which are obviously two blends which are very potent healing blends. So according to the Essential Life book, the top uses, again, I'm just going to read through this fairly quickly: wrinkles and stretch marks, because it's so healing for skin, and that says to apply with myrrh. Nosebleeds, bleeding, and haemorrhaging. So it's very good for very heavy periods, putting it topically over here, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, and using it obviously on the bridge of your nose for nosebleeds. Scars, wounds, bruising, shock, pain relief, and nerve damage. Alcohol addiction, apply to the abdomen and over the liver. Isn't that interesting? Because it's healing, fusing, regenerating. So perhaps by healing the liver, one really helps with an alcohol addiction. Psoriasis and skin conditions, and it says to apply with geranium on areas of concern. So that's for psoriasis and skin conditions. Varicose veins, using with cypress. So varicose veins is all about healing the vein, bringing back the tissue elasticity, and cypress is all about flow. So stopping the stagnancy of the venous return and getting it flowing. Tinnitus and earache, massaging behind the ears to calm spasms, pain, and inflammation. It's very good for tinnitus. Sinus congestion, combining with sandalwood and lemon. I've never used it like this for sinus congestion. In fact, this is the first time I've actually realized it. Sandalwood and lemon, apply to the forehead and swab the nostrils and also diffuse. So we might try that. I've got a few sinusly congested children. Liver issues and heavy metal toxicity, take internally in a capsule to promote heavy metals chelation and liver cleansing, which is really interesting because it's such a huge topic these days, about detoxing from heavy metals and cleansing our livers. And then the emotional balance is from wounded to released. So that is Helichrysum from the Essential Life book. And then from the Advanced Oil Magic, we talk about top uses: tissue repair, apply neat or diluted to wounds. So, I mean, our nickname for it, and all our kids know, it's called liquid stitches. And this is where it's so empowering, because they cut themselves. They literally just drop a drop of the Helichrysum in it. It's our go-to for any cuts, wounds. We had these boys staying with us from Wet Pups in Cape Town, 4 young men, grade 7, 13-year-olds, very excited to be on tour. Colin was away, Moses was away, it was just Finn and I. We just arrived back home. It was in the middle of winter. I was like, put on the fire, put the lasagna in the oven, and just as I was like, okay, one of the boys comes through and he's clutching his head and there's just blood coming down his hand. I'm like, oh my gosh, now what? So I had to get my torch and glasses to try and see, because he had this really dark hair, to try and see how bad the cut was. And we literally just treated it with Helichrysum. And I mean, I couldn't go take him for stitches, and wasn't, stitches can also happen within the next 24 hours. They don't have to happen immediately, as long as you stem the bleeding and that sort of thing. So we did quite a lot of Helichrysum into the wound, and we put some gauze on. He had to wear my sweatband to try and keep the gauze in place. And then the next day we took him back to school and showed the SAN, and she had a look and didn't need stitches, and it actually recovered remarkably well, and he played the rest of the tournament. So it's things like that. And I'll tell you 1 or 2 other experiences. But this tissue healing, and I've had a number of people who've said to me, gosh, I'd heard you talking about that, and my husband cut his hand while carving on Sunday, and we thought we'd try the Helichrysum first, and they did, and then he didn't need to go for stitches. So it is for tissue repair, apply neat or diluted to wounds. Bleeding, apply to clean wound to stop the bleeding. Eczema and psoriasis, apply 1 to 2 drops to affected areas. And so I combine it with geranium, as stated in the other book. Shock, diffusing 3 to 6 drops. So that's interesting, because so often when someone's cut themselves or badly wounded, they'll go into shock. And so even just using this topically on them, one often ends up using 2 or 3 drops, and they'll get the diffusion of this, which will help to calm them. Tinnitus, applying a drop behind the ear. Viral infections, take 1 to 2 drops in a capsule or diffuse. So I've never used it for that, but using 1 to 2 drops in a capsule or diffuse. And cholesterol, take 1 to 3 drops in a capsule and applying to the bottom of the feet. So I've also never used it for that, and it's something that I'm going to bear in mind. So there's a bruised skin healing blend, which 9 drops Helichrysum, 5 drops lavender, 4 drops chamomile, and fractionated coconut oil. And that's a really lovely gift to give someone. I make rollers for people for concussion or for bad bruising, or if someone's broken their nose or something like that. And I'll do something very similar to this. 9 drops Helichrysum, 5 drops lavender, 4 drops Roman chamomile, topped with coconut oil. And we use that a lot. You can also use it as after sun potion. 2 drops lavender, 2 drops Helichrysum with aloe vera, with exposed skin. But we've also got the nice after sun spray now, and our skin spray also works brilliantly. So I always add Helichrysum, actually, it's a good point, to the skin spray. So the skin spray, we use 10 drops lavender, 10 drops tea tree, 10 drops frankincense, and I do 5 drops Helichrysum. And we use that for any cuts, wounds, grazes, astro burns. We use it for sunburn, anything to do with skin. It's amazing skin healer. So that's what I take on holiday with me overseas, that sort of thing, because we use it all the time. In fact, it comes back empty. So just to say a few other experiences of how we've used it. I just got it, like I mentioned, in that December, and we went skiing in the January, and one of our fellow skiers, Alex Davidson, Emma's husband, he hurt his thumb. She can't remember what he did to it. I think he fell on it or something. It was so sore. He actually thought he was going to be out for the rest of the skiing tour. And we just literally laid it on the Helichrysum, and it was quite strong because then you'd put it into his gloves and stuff. But within the next day, the bruising all came out. It was yellow and hectic. And after that, it was almost, he said he couldn't believe how much it recovered and how quickly it recovered. It really is astounding. And then one of our international leaders, Rosie, we'll have to actually maybe get her to do another talk for us. She's been using the oils for much longer than we have. And she's had lots of fertility issues and lots of miscarriage issues. And she actually used her Helichrysum. She used it internally, drops internally, to help her stop where she started bleeding, and she was worried that she was going to miscarry. She's actually started using it topically and internally, and it stopped her miscarriage, which is quite astounding. So, well, her miscarriage stopped. So whether it was the Helichrysum or it just was that, but it was something that she could do to support that moment, which was obviously very, very stressful. So blood, noses, varicose veins, and then the emotions book talks about Helichrysum for pain. So it's from wounded to released is the emotional thing, but Helichrysum is an amazing healer of pain. It aids the walking wounded, those with a history of difficult life circumstances, trauma, self-destruction, loss, or abuse. These individuals need the powerful spiritual support that Helichrysum offers. So it talks about giving strength and endurance to the wounded soul who must keep on living despite past difficulties. And so it's a lot about the emotional wounding. Helichrysum offers hope that wounds can be healed. It brings hope to the most discouraged of souls and life to those in need of rebirth. So its negative emotions are intense emotional pain, anguish, or trauma, hopeless, despairing, wounded. And the positive properties are healing, courageous, hopeful, transforming, persevering, determined. And actually, it's quite interesting that it says courageous, because I think that's actually what it invokes in me, a feeling of courage when I smell it, because it's so helpful in a time of trauma and stress. It engages a feeling of courageousness. So those are those two amazing oils. Any questions or comments or times when you've used it?
Yeah, just a quick another testimonial for the liquid stitches. I also cut myself quite badly at the end of last year. I was chopping vegetables or something, and two or three drops, and it's actually miraculous.
It is.
I really, as you said, I really don't love the smell, but it's worth it to.
Oh, thank you, Mandy. Yeah, it's lovely to hear. Yeah, it's nice to hear that it's helped others in times of need. Yeah. We also had my nephew staying with us. I've just remembered this now, about 2 or 3 Decembers ago, and he had this wound that went very septic, and because he'd been in the pool a lot and it was looking so grotty. It was that getting very dangerous kind of time. And we also used a lot of Helichrysum drops neat into the wound, and by the end of the holiday it had actually healed over and was looking a hell of a lot better than it did when he first arrived. So thank you for that. Anything else? Okay, so I'm going to stop recording anyway. Thank you everyone for joining.